And good morning. It is time for the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. And now your host, with a big old smile on his face again. You must be, what are you eating?
It's coffee, I'm telling you.
It's the coffee, okay. I thought maybe there's some special drug you're taking. Or
I've got the coffee silo going.
You do yoga in the morning before you get here?
You know, I was talking... Nice, can you imagine that? I was talking to a future guest the other day. He says, do I have to have my own coffee silo or will one be provided? No, you're on your own with this coffee silo thing. Listen, folks, we've got Ludwig von Wiedendorsky and Miles Bauer are with us this morning. There is so much news that as I was writing today's show plan, it was changing while I was writing it. I can't keep up. I've never seen such a thing. So the other day I said absolutely positively I'm not going to talk about Hillary and whatever her real physical illness is. But, of course, that's changed and continues to evolve, and how could I not? So, Miles, you're buying right in. She's got pneumonia, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
He's going, don't do that to me. Of course not. Listen, I'm telling you, we were talking right before the show started. I'm genuinely, honestly, truly not a conspiratorial guy. I just don't, most of my roll my eyes at. There's a number of really, really popular websites that I don't go to because, frankly, I think they're absolutely silly. Having said that, I put on my Facebook page a video of a doctor. I don't know his name. None of it matters. Listen, he was extremely convincing that he believes that she's got Parkinson's. Right down to the fact of how the pneumonia plays into that, assuming it's really pneumonia. I don't know what she has, but I do know that at her age, with a history of falling down, I see that Bill Clinton had used the word frequent, and then it was CBS, I think, that edited it out so that he no longer said frequent. They said, no, you can't say that. That was too truthful. Don't do that again. Listen, folks, this isn't partisan, but the Democratic Party has a problem with their candidate. They've got to have a little come-to-Jesus meeting and consider that it ain't going to happen. So let's assume she won. What president would we have for 4 years? That's a scary proposition. What do you think, Miles? Oh, I wish you could. I wish you could see Ludwig right now. I'm sorry.
The connection was really weak. So
he's trying to get the streaming thing going. Talk about confusion on the bridge. I'm sorry to cut you off. It was laughable, though. Anyway, what were you saying, Miles?
No, I was going to say, I think we have to deal with the reality that, Tim Kaine's probably going to be the president.
Oh, God.
Because Hillary, who knows what is going on there? There's such a lack of transparency there that, even if you're a Democrat, how much confidence do you have?
She and I don't want to be flippant, but she lies sometimes when the truth sounds better, and right, truly, and including whatever her real illness is. And it's ironic given that her political career got started taking Nixon to school while she got fired for being. That's a whole another story for a different show. But the point is that she's doing what he did. If he would have said right up front, listen, this is what happened. I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. Here's the details. He just sailed off into it took Nixon to go to China. That'd have been what we remembered him by. And here, after all of these years, given that that's where she started, she's still making the same imbecilic error that he did, which is to cover up whatever it is she's covering up.
It'd almost help her. It would actually help her.
It would help her. It would help her, whatever her issue is. Now, and then I wrestle with it a little bit, because on one hand, you think, well, maybe it's so bad that it wouldn't help her, in which case I'd say, what a selfish person to run for president and fool everybody into this after all we went through to get to a resolution on the presidency. So if it's truly a debilitating disease and she's hiding it, wow, that's the epitome of shame on her. And if it isn't, just tell the truth, because pneumonia ain't it. Nobody has frequently falls down for years over pneumonia. I mean, it's so laughable. It's sick.
Although I would say one thing, being one of the people in the basket of deplorables,
Yeah, that's a big basket, by the way. Do you see the picture? Do you see the picture of this gigantic stadium? It is jammed with Trumpublicans, and the caption is, "We're going to need a bigger basket." Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? But her actions. I mean, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah,
I appreciate her actions because she's just helping Trump.
Yeah, she is. But one of the things I wanted to make sure to talk about in this segment is that while on one hand I got to agree with you, this can't be helping her, but the polls don't seem to be reflecting any of this last week or 2 weeks of train wreck she's had. He's been on an absolute success roll. She's been on an absolutely stumble bum after stumble bum error, and you go. Why are the polls? I don't get what folks are thinking. Honest, I don't.
I didn't think this would change much.
You
already knew she let 3 Americans plus die in Benghazi.
Four, but who's counting?
You already knew all these things. That she let them die. She erased her emails. She's let her husband cheat on her, and she lied about that. She's let people take hammers to phones. We knew all this stuff, and yet we still have her as a nominee. You think stumbling, getting off the curb? Surprised she didn't break a heel stepping off the curb to get in. That was
maybe she did.
That really is what happened.
You see her head bob all over? Listen, that was a seizure.
Yeah.
I don't care what they call it. Yeah, Miles.
Mike?
Yeah.
I got a theory, though.
All right, I'm ready. Drum rolls.
Remember in 1980, everybody was worried about Governor Reagan
Yep.
up until the first debate.
Right.
And as soon as Reagan came off as presidential in that first debate, that's when the landslide began. Prior to that debate, everybody thought he was a warmongering, psycho who was going to nuke us all into next year.
They've still got a lot of folks convinced of that, even though he's one of the most popular presidents in history.
Yeah, so
bedtime for Bonzo.
I
I got so sick of hearing that.
I am thinking that this might be 1980 again, that everybody is hesitant about Trump depending on how he does in the first debate, and then all of a sudden the gates open.
There's another thing at play here, too.
Yeah.
In 1980 election, Iran was a major player in that determining factor, too. And right now, Iran's playing some shenanigans that, if it's not dealt with correctly in the next 2 months, could also be another factor, I think.
You mean just because their fishing fleet is dive bombing our destroyers?
That, and then they just had a thing 2 days ago. They threatened to shoot down a spy plane.
Yeah.
In the Gulf over there. They're playing games, and we know obviously. And I'm not even gonna call him a leader because he's not a leader. Our figurehead, the President Obama, is going to do nothing about it.
Well, he is going to do something about it. He's going to give them some more money.
Yeah.
Because money will heal the issue.
That's what John Adams did, and then Jefferson came in on the Somalian pirates and said, "I'm done paying you. I'm taking you to task. I'm going to put you out of your misery and just end it."
Yeah,
and that's what we'll have.
That's very good points. Jim Riley, he's got on his Facebook. I actually sent it out in an email this morning. I got to tell the Jim Riley story. It's a picture of Hillary, although it does look like Helen Thomas. There's a bunch of people standing behind her with hazmat suits and gas masks on, and of course she's hacking and coughing with "Stronger Together" on the as the moniker. You got to see it; it's funny. Anyways, I when you watch this thing, both politically in terms of stature, I'm watching Trump in interview after interview. Actually, speaking of interview, he's going to be in Flint, Michigan today. I can't wait to see what he says after he tours the water system over there in beautiful downtown Flint. You saw that, right, Miles?
No, I didn't know he was coming to Flint.
Yeah, he's going to be in Flint this afternoon. I think that's his 4th trip to the state of Michigan. So even though most of the talking heads on mainstream media still show Michigan leaning hard to Hillary, obviously Trump's internal polling is showing what we've been saying all along, and that's that Michigan is in play. Speaking of that, when you look at the polling, Miles, I lamented earlier that it wasn't changing. Do you believe polling, or do you think that it's a little bit fooled with?
Well, I mean, yes, I clearly think that the media's got an agenda, but I mean, some of the polling I have seen is starting to go Trump over Hillary, especially over this past weekend.
Right, I saw he's 3 points up on a couple of the averages, but more importantly, to their vantage, he's up in several of the states in play, battleground states. Yeah. And listen, just let's pause for a second, because I'd gotten some questions after our show last week about battleground states and some of the things that we talked about, with folks asking what it is we were getting at. And so I want to pause there for a second. When you look at the United States map, in fact, somewhere I think in one of our little chat conferences, the three of us, we had a map that shows somebody's current estimation of the Electoral College. And so I wanted to pause so everyone can, the folks that don't know will understand what we were getting at. There are a number of states that we can assume will go Trump, and there are a number of states that we can assume will go the Hildebeest. And so those states are not the ones in play. And what would you guess, Miles? There's 8 or 9 states that are realistically in play. Is that a fair?
Yeah, I mean at least.
Yeah, well, let's call it 10 just for fun, because I don't have the map in front of me. But the point of me bringing this up is that the majority of the states have already decided. They're a matter of fact, and it's the same as we've talked about in Michigan on a state house level. There's most of the districts in the state of Michigan. We know whoever wins the primary, the ones that are Democrat will be Democrat. The ones that are Republican, like in the district I'm from, is the 89th. Whoever wins the Republican primary will win the general. So we can sit and we can rationalize a bunch of different reasons why. A lot of folks will blame it on say the word for me. I'm having a mental block.
Gerrymandering?
Yeah, gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering.
But listen, it's really not that. It's a question of where people decide to live. And that has as much to play with it as anything else does. But my point in pausing is just so folks know that when we're talking about it, the assumption is that the majority of the states are already, for all practical purposes, decided. Michigan, I believe, is in play. It hasn't been in play since 1988. I think that Trump puts it in play. Some of the things, by the way, and we talked about this throughout the primary, some of the things that causes it to be in play are not things that I'm especially fond of. Some of the things I like a lot. And since I'm smart enough to know that you don't get the entire loaf, you get to have as many slices as you can get and you move on, then I'm embracing this. And we're going to talk about that a lot in the second segment. But
well, let me ask you on that. How do you feel, though, that, like, Florida's early voting is going to start, if it hasn't already, I think they said, and the debates haven't happened yet. How do you feel about the early voting taking place?
I'm all right with early voting. Each state gets to decide. That's federalism. I'm just telling you, that's what federalism is. The states get to decide how they're going to do it. And in fact, one of the things I wanted to touch on, even though it's not on our little agenda, is the ongoing debate over Michigan and whether it can straight party vote or whether it has to straight party vote, or whether a person can vote for each candidate and each issue. And you've heard me on this show before. I think it's absolutely outrageously racist for folks to say that there are segments of our society that are too stupid and must vote a straight I just think that's just an obnoxious thing to say. But the point of me bringing it back up again is that that's Michigan's right to make that decision on how we are going to do it. And by the way, folks, those that are disagreeing with me, there are some 40 states that do it how Michigan wanted to do it, but we're told that we can't because it's racist to do. So it seems that the appellate court thinks that the other 40 states are racist, or maybe they think that their minorities are smarter than Michigan's minorities. In either case, it's just ugly politics. But my point in this is that, and it goes to you, if Florida wants to have theirs early, you just sat in a political meeting with me the other day, Ludwig, where they were discussing absentee votes. Mm-hmm. That's going to come up well before at least the second and the third debate.
Oh, yeah.
People get to make their mind up. There's a lot of folks right now that have flat made up their mind, and who Hillary and Donald Trump are trying to get to decide are what I affectionately refer to as the river reeds off in the middle that blow back and forth with the wind. I remember when Obama first won, and they were talking about how many Reagan voters voted for Obama, and I thought at the time, what kind of mind can say I voted for Ronald Reagan and Obama? I don't get that kind of mind. I don't.
I don't
But
either.
Miles, am I in the ditch again?
No, but you know what? I would point out one thing going back to the polls.
Yep.
What I was encouraged about, I was reading an article this morning about how Republican registration is up, significantly
Right.
up in many of the battleground states, and that's kind of eating into the inherent Democrat advantage that has been classically realized in some of those states.
Right.
So this thing really could be a nail biter. I mean, it might be a couple of days to figure out who actually pulls this out because of the significant demographic changes that are occurring.
There's absolutely no question about it. Listen, we've run over, so we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, I've got a couple of things I want to have listeners think about. Folks, we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Mike Hewitt.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com because you deserve it. And the Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by renegaderiver.com. And already, we're into segment number 2.
Listen, I got some big hot topics I want to jump right in the middle of, but before I do that, what did Miles say? Do I need to mainline it, or what was his term on Facebook? What did he say? A frequent flyer?
Yeah, frequent flyer.
A frequent flyer. I'm wanting to talk about Sweet Connections for a minute. How goes the family business there, Ludwig?
It's good. It's good. It's going well.
Yep.
One of the things that we're really pushing right now is the gift baskets or gift. They say gift basket, but it doesn't always come in a basket for businesses. You know, if you're a salesperson and you want to give your clients a thank you gift,
Yep.
you just fill out a form, email it over, and we'll have it delivered to them with a handwritten note thanking them for their business.
You going to do Sweetest Day and all of that?
Oh, yeah.
Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the Hallmark holidays.
Christmas?
Big time Christmas.
Yeah.
Now, if you're watching...
Birthdays?
Big time. We do birthday baskets. We do baby shower baskets.
You guys deliver?
Yes. It'll be shipped to them.
Shipped?
Yes.
FedEx?
Yeah, I think she's using FedEx.
So am I going to get this apple that looks all beat to heck?
No.
What do I want with this?
No. They're packaged nice.
Are they?
Yeah, we're not getting anything beat up.
All right, tell me about the website, and then we got to talk about some business.
Sweet-connection.com.
All right, Miles, when you come to town, we're going to have to go over there so we both can get frequent flyer cards.
All right.
We'll
All
make
right.
sure they make a big supply knowing you're coming.
Nice. I think both of them are telling me I'm fat, Brian. I think that's what they were saying.
We're concerned.
So that's how you're reading into that one.
I'm picking up on what they're throwing down, as it were. Listen, all jokes. You hear him start giggling? That was evil. Listen, folks. Here's what we were talking about off air, and I mean this passionately. I don't get the folks that are never Trump still. I don't. And I get tired of beating up on it, so I apologize to listeners. I won't stay on this for the whole segment. I honestly don't get it. When I look at
Mike?
Yes, sir?
Mike, have we officially reached the place where we can say, if you're still not on the Trump train, you're not going there?
You know, I don't know. I don't believe that's true, and let me tell you why. It goes to
Okay.
it goes to your point in the first segment. You think that when it comes to the first debate, if he looks presidential, that'll be the end, whatever the beginning of a tidal wave. I'm putting words in your mouth, but no,
Yeah.
I think that there are still some independents out in the middle. I think that I'm still seeing folks on Facebook and other social media that I'm involved in that are slowly saying, okay, I get it. I had a person, in fact, she's been a guest in here, Gina, I won't go the whole name, doesn't
Brittany.
matter. Ah, there you are. Okay, good job. So here's the point.
You couldn't say it.
Where'd we get him at? So
Gina.
we had Gina in the studio. She's been on the show. She's a great person. When I would say, this is her telling me, by the way, when I would say, and this is this is genuinely my position, folks, I am going to support the most conservative candidate the electorate will allow. I've been saying it for years. When I was not in favor of Romney, once he was the most conservative candidate the electorate will allow, I said, okay, fine. Same with McPain, same with Dole. I wasn't a fan of any of them, not a single one of them. But if that's the most conservative the electorate will allow, and I looked at the other side with Igor and now the Hildebeest. Listen, when I look at Hillary Clinton, she is absolutely everything that I don't want in our federal government. She can't tell the truth. She'd climb a tree to tell a lie when standing on the ground and telling the truth sounds better. I've never seen anybody like the Clinton family ever in my life. I just haven't. So when I hear someone say, well, I don't like what he said in 1988, I'm going, really? Honest? That's what your reasoning is? That's how you're noodling it out? So anyways, Gina messages a link to me that she heard, and she said, I listened to this, and now I get what you were saying. Will you do me a favor and play that up for listeners?
Why, certainly.
So you want a unity speech? You want a unity speech? I'll give you a unity speech. I don't care who our candidate is, and I haven't since the beginning of this. I haven't. Ask not what the candidate can do for you. Ask what you can do for the candidate. And that's what the Tea Party is. We are there to confront them on behalf of our candidate. I will march behind whoever our candidate is, because if we don't, we lose. There are two paths. There are two paths. One is America, and the other one is Occupy. One is America, the other one is Occupy. And I don't care. Along the way, and I'm not a candidate. I'm never going to be a candidate. I'm just a goofball from Los Angeles who wears goofy shoes. Promised people I would shave, didn't. Promised to take a shower. I got too caught up talking to everybody. And here I am, kind of a mess, but kind of excited to be here. Because over the last 3 years, I've realized that the Republican Party and the conservative movement is not what ABC and CBS puts on the screen. They try to portray you in the worst possible light. And when I walk through CPAC, where I travel the United States to meet people in the Tea Party who care, black, white, gay, and straight, anyone that's willing to stand next to me to fight the progressive left, I will be in that bunker. And if you're not in that bunker because you're not satisfied with this candidate, more than shame on you, you're on the other side.
Folks, listen, if you didn't recognize his voice, that was Andrew Breitbart. He was giving the CPAC a speech in 2012. That was, I believe, the year he passed away.
Yeah.
I think that was just a few months before he passed away. Listen, she writes, Gina Rinke, she writes, Amen. Now that was a unity speech. Gosh, I miss him. Her general point was, she said, now I get your point. Because my point had been, I'm going to vote for the most conservative candidate the electorate will allow. One thing I find fascinating about that speech just now is that he says in that speech almost exactly what Donald Trump has been saying about who he wants on the Trump train with straight people and gay people and black people and white people and everybody else. Get on board. Now, how come it is when Andrew Breitbart said it, everyone clapped like penguins because he's right, but Donald Trump isn't perfect? And so, no, we don't want nothing to do with that. Miles, I have to tell you, I do agree with you. I think as we go forward, when you get into the debate, and frankly, as people watch him in the interviews I've been watching him give over the last few weeks, and they're not seeing the bombastic guy we saw when he's talking to 20,000 people through the primary, they're going to go, you know what? He's a pretty good guy. He's been saying what Breitbart said. So it's not a big surprise when you look at the folks he surrounded with him at his campaign, in his campaign committee right now. You got to go, okay, now suddenly it makes sense because he said what he said. And we still got folks going, he's not pure. I've not met a pure person. I'm 55 years old. I've never met a pure person. Not one, not even you, Miles Bauer.
There's times where, Mike, you said to me, oh, you're a Democrat.
You are a Democrat.
And I'm like, what? Because I think that. You're like, yeah, that's a Democrat.
He's a closet Democrat.
I do it to my brother all the time. The other day I said to him, I said, hey, have fun voting for Hillary. He's like, what? Because he told me some view he thought. So nobody, like you say, is purely 100% conservative. Everybody has some point where they think, oh, yeah, I like that idea. Because let's face it, if it fits our own personal agenda or our own livelihoods, we like it.
What do you think, Miles?
Well, and I would say something else, right? Are we saying that since we were all 15 years old, we've never changed our opinion about something? I mean, of course, people evolve with age, right?
Right. There's no question about it.
I mean, remember, hating to be stereotypical here, but look, Ronald Reagan was a Democrat in his early days.
I have to tell you that first off, that's true. But and we've talked about this. Not John Kerry. I was just reading an article about how the State Department is funneling money to his daughter. I apologize. It was a Freudian slip. You got John Kennedy, who I've sat on this show before and read his campaign literature. And I literally read his campaign literature, and it sounded like somebody middle of the Republican Party, not moderate, not hard conservative, right smack dab in middle of the Republican Party. I say that because, Miles, you were right when you first started joining us with the show, and that's that we are watching the parties shift. We're trading people, and anyone that denies that or scoffs at it or blames it for a reason to vote for some nitwit that will draw 2 points. I laugh when I think about that. I'm sorry, it is a wasted vote. That's not a wasted vote. Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay?
It really is. Worse than that, if it adds to the math that could have went to beat Hillary, and you end up with a Hildebeest in some communist-leaning Supreme Court and appellate court, etc., etc. Well, good for you. I'm with Breitbart on this. He is spot on.
I'm glad you're at that point. I just look at him and go, I'm glad your principles got us to where we're at today.
Yep, nice principles. Thank you. Listen, I'm reading the. Miles, do you ever? This is a laughing. Do you ever read the Drudge Report?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and if you read the headlines from article to article, wow, we've got fascinating things going on in our country nowadays. We really do. Just reading the headlines that they've clipped from it, what a fascinating world we're living in.
I was going to say, when you said John Kerry, it's kind of funny. His wife, who's the empress of the Heinz, she was married to a hardcore conservative.
Why are all of these people, speaking of that for a second, why are all these, the leadership of the Democratic Party that's there to represent the common person, all these people are not just wealthy, they are uber grossly over-the-top wealthy while they're making fun of if Donald Trump's got a lot of money. And you go, wait a minute, that's you making fun of him for being rich and you married into a pot full of gold? Some of it's beyond the pale of... it gets into the party politics that I resent.
Well, it's almost like medieval times, right? Keep the peasants low while the royalty stays high.
But that goes to education.
But then say, we really want to help you. I just can't.
Yeah. Well, remember the show we did a couple weeks ago? There's no problem.
Yeah.
When they were talking about inner city America, because Donald Trump's reaching out to them, and the real problem was not that there was or wasn't a problem. The real problem was that they don't want him reaching out to them. You're a Republican. You can't reach out to inner city America, especially black people.
Don't tell them the truth.
Who do you think you are doing that? I'm a citizen in the United States, the same as everybody else here. Well, not everybody. Some of the voters aren't. Sorry, I got carried away there for a second.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to hear your opinion on is the block of quote-unquote Republicans that say, let's just go ahead and let Hillary win, and then we'll come back in 2020 or 2024, whichever, and then we can put the party back right. Are you part of the group of people that think, look, if we lose this thing, that it's probably over?
Yeah,
and that 2020 is irrelevant?
I really am. I listen, there's a vote going on today in Michigan State Board of Education about whether to build special bathrooms for people that are questioning themselves or transgendered or whatever. And listen, the one thing that President Obama did, he kept his promise, by the way, and those folks that agree with him should be clapping like penguins. He has fundamentally transformed America. He really has. I'm reading the quote last night, and I can't remember, it was Wikipedia or somewhere, about federalism. I'm having a big debate in my home about federalism last night, and this is the big debate. And so I'm reading the definition, and it talks about federalism as what the United States evolved from. That's a quote. Evolved from. And so I go, no, it isn't. But to Miles's point, to your point, Miles, there's only, every camel's got a limit. There's only so much we can financially and culturally take. When we've got leadership that have looked to Jackson Prison and said, wow, all of the folks in there, 80+% of them are come from single parents. I have an idea. Let's make everybody from a single parent. You go, what? You think that's a way of life? You think that that's going to be culturally solvent? That's the term I've got to use. Is that going to be culturally solvent? And so to your question, Miles, when I hear Republicans, I got to tell you, up until 3 months ago, I liked George W. Bush. When I watched him and that family do what they did, I'm disgusted with them. They've taken their careers, and I really applauded all of them. I really did. I didn't agree with everything, but I thought he handled some things with class after he left office. What he did with the convention and leading up to the convention, I'm utterly and completely remain disgusted with him because he buys into what you just questioned. And no, our culture cannot take 4 more years of Obama. It can't. And that's what she represents. Worse than that, because her health is absolutely in question. We don't even know if we're getting her. We don't know if we're getting Huma. We have no clue who we're getting to run the country if she wins, because we know going in she's done fallen her head, rung her bell, and she's not thinking correctly. She admits that. So no, I don't know the answer to it.
Mike, I would just lay out, if she's able to flip the court,
yep,
you and I will never live to see another day.
No.
Matt will, but you and I will not live to see another day.
Yep.
Where we'll have any sanity coming out of the Supreme Court.
Kentucky governor, did you read his quotes yesterday?
No.
Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin says conservatives may have to turn to physical violence. What he's saying is that if Hillary Clinton wins, this may edge towards a civil war. That's what he said. Now, I'm not, by the way, folks, just don't throw stones at me. I'm not advocating that. I'm telling you that you've got leadership on both sides, not just Republicans, on both sides that are now openly using that kind of language. It isn't just some talk show host in Michigan or Illinois or wherever. You've got elected high-level Republican and Democratic leaders using that kind of language now, that if they don't get their way, it may come to physical violence.
I would not be shocked.
Folks, I'm telling you, I don't want to be right, but I think my book was spot on. We need to go to a break, though, and when we come back, we're going to do an Enigma report. Folks, we'll be right back.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show on News.
Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com, because you deserve it.
This is News Talk 1090 WKBZ and Talk 1230 WTKG.
And this is the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by renegaderiver.com.
3, 2, 1, 0.
You have arrived to your final destination on your journey through reality. Welcome to the Enigma Report.
Here's what I honestly don't get. Did I have reverb for just a second?
It was some unintended mistake on my part, I think.
Oh, I thought for a minute I was Obama running for office. I thought I had a little bit of godlike reverb going. That's what I tried to get last week, and everyone looked at me like that ain't going to happen. Honest, folks, what I don't get is how we got America from where we were at 30 years ago to where we're at now. I genuinely don't get it. Things like, for instance, President Obama. We talked about it off air. Whether President Obama was transformational or we were already in a state of flux which caused him to win. I agree with Miles. You said off air about his skin color. Yes, I think there was a lot of hope that if he were elected, even from people like me, obviously I didn't vote for him, but then he won, and you go, well, okay, well, I don't agree with socialism, and clearly he's a socialist, but if this brings some level of normalcy between races, I'm okay with it. I can live through whatever he'll bring us if it can bring down the angst in the races. And it's worse now than it was 8 years ago. I don't mean a little worse now. It is way worse now. Like when we had Reverend Pitts on, we talked about the riots of 67, 68. Wow. We're almost back to that level of angst. Now listen, there's a lot of black folks that are doing economically way better than they did then. But we haven't seen a war against police officers in 30 years, 40 years, approaching 50 years now. In fact, when Jim Brown, who's been a guest on the show, when he first got on the police department back in the early 70s, it was at the tail end, this is by his description, it was at the tail end of a war against police, and now we're back there again. But what I'm really wrestling with in this enigma is how America, that was a land of the free and home of the brave and individual ruggedism, how did we get to be a bunch of crybaby whining socialists? I honestly don't get how we got there inside Miles and my lifetime. I don't. Miles, help me out. Where did we zig when we should have zagged? Not zigzags.
I think it has to go back to the analogy of slowly warming up the frog in the pot of water, and you just slowly warm it up rather than do it all of a sudden. I think it was just gradual.
I mentioned things like, and now I've got the article in front of me, CBS. CBS edits out Bill Clinton's Hillary frequently faints. He made a Freudian slip. He said the truth. Now CBS edited it out. And I said, and I paused for a minute, I don't know why the American people I don't know why they're just saying, we've had enough of you lying to us. Because this is a lie. This is CBS editing out the former president of the United States, husband of the current Democratic nominee candidate, editing out his words to make it appear something that it wasn't. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's a lie. That is a lie. And it's not like a hidden lie. It's right there in your face. And I don't, for the life of me, not partisan, by the way, I don't for the life of me understand why the American people are allowing their country to turn into a cesspool, which is what I see, at least politically. Everything that we do. Got in a debate the other evening where about fishing licenses, if you can imagine that. And the quote is, when fishing without a license is more criminal than being an illegal alien, it's time to replace the government. And listen, folks, that's true. In the state of Michigan, if you want to go catch a fish, it's $26.
It's ridiculous.
And you think to yourself, why is that? They don't own the fish. They don't, the government, who are these people that thinks this stuff is reasonable?
That's why I asked you the other day.
Who is it that we've elected to sit on our state board to discuss whether we should flip our bathrooms upside down in the public school system? What the heck does that have to do with teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic to children that don't know what federalism is? Think about that for a minute. I was told, shouldn't have that conversation about federalism on the air because no one knows what you're talking about. It's our government. It's how our system works. What do you mean people don't know what the word is? It's how this government is supposed to function. The central government, our federal government, is supposed to be subservient to the collection of states, not the other way around. And the fact that folks don't know what federalism is or have never heard of the Federalist Papers. So when I ask the enigma question, how the heck did we get here? We've been put here purposely with folks that have dummied us down generation after generation. It's Miles's frog comment. The part I don't get is, why are we allowing it? Why are we allowing it? Oh, Mike, you don't understand. It's just too big. What are we supposed to do? Educate your children. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't say it's the school's responsibility and they're not doing their job, so oh well. What do you mean, oh well? They're your children. That's how we got here. It's the frog thing. Miles is right. But we've gotten to the point where folks, they have a government class. They have to, by federal law, have a government class. They don't teach government in government class. And so when I look and say, how come folks don't realize that we have a Republican, small r, a Republican form of elected leadership in a federalist system, and people look at me like I'm talking Swahili. They don't know the words. How can you not know the words? You went to school. Forget having a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. You had 13 years, including kindergarten in the state of Michigan at least. You had 13 years of free education. Free, formal, public education where we spent more per pupil in our free education system, even though that's a wee bit of an oxymoron. We spent more per pupil in our free education system than any other country in the world, and you don't know how your own system works. I'm sorry, folks. This is not acceptable. It is why it is that we have Hillary Clinton, who's advocating for National Socialism. You recognize that term anywhere? Folks, have you ever heard that term? She's advocating openly for National Socialism. Folks, I've heard that term, and as a gun dealer, I push back. Miles, am I off in the drink?
No, I mean, remember, one of the things they're advocating is to have a federalized police force. That's way spooky.
We used to call it the Gestapo.
Yep.
Soviet Union called it Chetka. Anyone read my book, America's Final Beginning? Those two people that read it will know Chetka and Gestapo and federal police force. When we use the word federal now, it's almost like a joke when we use the word federal. Can you imagine, Miles, approaching the podium at our first constitutional convention, say, hey, wait a minute, guys, how about if we do it this way, and then describe how we've currently got it?
Yeah.
Can you imagine what the reply would be if you sat down with Ben Franklin over a cocktail and said, I think you're wrong. We should do it this way. What do you say? Jefferson, any of them. People say, well, that's all history, Mike. They were a bunch of racist slaveholders. Okay, sit down with Abe Lincoln, who I don't particularly like, by the way, but let's sit down with Abe Lincoln and tell him what kind of system we're going to pervert. Heck, I got to tell you, President Wilson would be shocked, and he was a socialist. We've let the ball out way too far, in my humble view. And I think that it goes to your question earlier, Miles, if we allow her to win, I don't think there's any coming back for us. If we don't, and by the way, to Trump's critics, if they're right and I'm wrong and he only treads water, I would rather just tread water than give up one more inch of rope because I think we're in trouble. Am I being shrill?
No, I mean, I have believed that the whole way. And again, going back to the court, if we lose a generation of court rulings, I mean, it's not about you and me anymore. Now it's about your daughters and my son.
And grandkids.
I think you guys are wrong. Because, number one, this has happened in my lifetime, not yours. And you guys have spanned a lot longer than me. But two, we don't lose a generation in the courts. We lose forever in the courts if this happens. This is forever.
We agree.
This is not generational. This is forever. Because once they transform everything and take the Constitution away, there is no going back. There is no adjusting that. It's forever. This is not a generational thing, I don't believe. I believe it's a forever thing. We will see the nation of Texas come about. The Canada's expansion into Michigan and Minnesota. Southern states. Confederate states of the South, whatever they want to call themselves, you will see a non-United States, new country, new territories developed if this happens.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction, and we're on the crust of it right now. We are watching a crisis in motion. I can't even say slow motion. I'm not trying to be shrill. It goes back to what I said in the second segment. We've got governors, we've got senators, we've got Congress people, both parties, openly talking about physical violence and hostility as a remedy to the circumstance. And Miles recently said we're that divided. Some comment about divided. Folks, we've always been this divided, and we've come this far before. We've got to pull back. We've got to look at our founding and say, do we want to be there or here?
And we've stepped over the edge, obviously.
Miles, are we over the edge? Is it? I don't think we're over the edge.
No. I'm saying as a nation, we came to this brink and we continued.
Oh, yeah, we went to war.
We went to war.
This
has happened.
Yeah,
History
we've
repeats
been
itself.
there. Listen, I'm hearing music. Two things. First off, follow us on Twitter. The 45 seconds. Follow us on Twitter at Talk Mike Hewitt. On Facebook at Mike Hewitt Show. The Mike Hewitt Show. And, of course, the website, the Mike Hewitt Show. Just one little quick hint. Not February, where did I come up with that? Next month, October 19th, will be our 4th anniversary. It'll be a big show, I'm just telling you. So follow us in between time, but we got a build-up coming. I'm looking forward to it, and I am excited. Folks, we'll see you next Wednesday at exactly 9 a.m. Have a great week.